Hey, you guys, do you ever look around and just feel like, God, everybody around me feels wealthier than I am? Well, if that's you, today I'm going to share some common reasons why we might feel this way. Plus, I'll share proven ways to combat this feeling and keep your focus. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. All right, if you know me, you know that I talk about comparison culture a lot. And I think it's on my mind often because I see it challenging us in new ways all the time, right? When we were young, it may have been like American Eagle or Hollister t-shirts that you see. But now it's like a $50,000 car that you see your neighbor driving. So the price seems to have gone up when it comes to our comparison, and it's constantly interrupting us through social media and advertising. And again, it's not making any of this easier. So let's have a little level set for a second. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average salary in the U.S. during Q4 of last year was just below $60,000. So if you're close to the national average, that means two things are true. Number one, you are normal. And number two, most people are in the exact same boat as you. Which brings me to reason number one, comparison culture is making us feel behind, is because most people are using debt to get ahead. And it can feel like everyone around you has like a new trendy thing all the time, or golly, they're doing all this stuff like vacations, or they're going out to great dinners, or it feels like they're traveling a lot. And that can feel so normal. But what you have to realize is, statistically speaking, we are seeing debt of all kinds are on the rise. So that's credit cards, car loans, personal loans, HELOCs. We are seeing people borrow money more than ever before. Now, yes, we are in a tough economy right now with high inflation. And so some people are using it to cover basic necessities for sure, but also our lifestyle and the standard of living that we have in America today is pretty dang high. And so for the average American to be able to cash flow and support what we see as quote unquote normal is really difficult. So if you're seeing people going above and beyond, they possibly could be using debt for that. The second reason you might feel like you're making less than everyone else is maybe you are. Sometimes it's a false sense of comparison because genuinely you might be making less than the person you're comparing your life to. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if it's a problem in your budget, then you have a couple of options. Number one, you may have to increase your income, right? If there's a certain level you want to be living, but you're not making that income, then your income needs to increase. And so whether that's side hustles, working overtime, or even getting a raise at your current job, whatever it looks like, increasing your income is going to be important. But then also lowering your spending. And so if you want some margin because you're not making as much as the person next to you, when it comes to your expenses, this is going to be really crucial. You're going to have to go through and really look at where you're spending your money and where you can actually be more purposeful and say, hey, I'm actually going to spend X amount at the grocery store. I'm not going to go out to eat as much as I was. I'm going to cut subscriptions that I'm not using. I'm going to do these things to be able to create margin on the expenses side. And kind of like what we said earlier, but I think there's something important to be said about adjusting your expectations. So if you are average and you're making $60,000 and you're comparing your lifestyle to someone that's making $120,000, they're making double what you're making. So your lifestyles are going to look different. So to get that margin, lowering your expenses is going to be really crucial. The third reason you might feel behind is because of unseen factors. So what do I mean by this? Well, maybe you're paying for childcare, but the person you're comparing your life to, grandma, watches the kids, right? And so they're saving $3,000-$4,000 a month on childcare because they have free childcare. Maybe their spouse is working and yours isn't, so they have a dual income coming in. Maybe they've paid off their student loans and they don't have that leaving their income, and you still are paying your student loans. It could even be family money, right? Who knows? But these unseen reasons you have to understand is a reality. So I think it's really important, again, because you have to know when you're comparing your life to someone else's, you have no idea from a 360 picture what's going on. Again, maybe they're making way more than you think that they're making, or maybe they're borrowing way more than you think they are. But whatever it is, there are unseen things happening. And so take that into account. Something else that is unseen but is a threat today is our internet safety. That is why I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Delete Me. I saw a headline recently that really caught my attention that 1/3 of the U.S. population's background info is now public. So for 115 million of us, data breaches mean that our info is out there for anyone to find. And this is things like our names, addresses, phone numbers. I mean, it's crazy, you guys. And this is why I love Delete Me, because they will find and remove your information from hundreds of data broker websites that will buy, sell, and trade your personal data. So take control of your online privacy with Delete Me. Individual Delete Me plans start as low as $9 a month. So sign up today at joindeleteme.com/Rachel for 20% off. And I'll also put a link in the description. All right, reason number 4 you feel behind financially is because net worth is invisible. So some people may be prioritizing daily luxuries, right? So whether it's, shopping or vacations or going out to eat, like whatever it looks like that you're seeing is, oh my gosh, they must have so much. They may be putting all of their income to that and none towards savings or investing, where you might be working to get out of debt. So your income's going there instead of a nice purse. Maybe you are investing money into retirement. So yours is going there and not a vacation at the moment. So, whatever it looks like, when you are really being wise with your money and you're planning long-term goals and you're actually fulfilling those, that means your money is being pushed out to the future and it's not present. But for a lot of people, they aren't investing in retirement. A lot of people are not trying to pay off debts. They're not saving up an emergency fund. They're just spending what they have. And so their present money is going to look like they have more, when in fact, net worth-wise, you could have more. Isn't that crazy? It may not look like it, but whether you're paying extra on your house and you have more equity, again, maybe you have investments, you don't have any debt, like you're doing these things to put yourself in a great financial position. From a net worth perspective, you may have a lot more net worth and theirs actually could be negative, but it doesn't look that way. So your net worth is invisible. Remember that. And the 5th reason you could feel behind is that you don't have clear goals guiding you. And what I mean by this is when you have something that you're shooting for and you're like, okay, this is my next step, or I'm going to try to do this and this and this. And you kind of have this guide with your money beyond just everyday expenses, but hey, long term, this is what I'm going to do. You're really focused on your money there. And the exciting thing is, hopefully it's going to bring you joy to know that you're putting your money in places that you want to put it. But if you don't have goals guiding you and that you're not motivated in a certain way, it's going to be even easier to fall into this comparison trap. Because if you're kind of just living and going and you don't really have direction with your money, it feels like any picture or any conversation your friend has with you could really take you and spiral you all the way thinking, oh my gosh, like look at what everyone else is doing. But when you're like, no, we're going to save up for that new car and pay cash for it, or we're going to, try to go on this trip for our anniversary next year, or whatever, fill in the blank, and you have a goal that you're saving towards and you're focused on that, that's going to really still give you direction versus just hearing or seeing people do stuff and thinking, oh my gosh, look at what all they're doing, because you're not making progress with your money. So money goals are so crucial, not only from a tactical standpoint, but also from a heart and motivation standpoint. And always remember that comparison is the thief of joy. It is a liar as well, because when you compare your internal money struggles to someone else's external status symbols, it is never a fair assessment. Okay, so give yourself a lot of grace and always remember what I see may not always be the full picture. Now, I wrote about comparison because it is something that I've always kind of struggled with. I'm always looking around, whether it's mom comparison, career comparison, life comparison. I mean, you fill in the blank, Rachel has been through it. But learning that contentment is so key, not just in your financial journey, but for you as a person overall, is really important. And so I wrote a whole book on this called Love Your Life, Not Theirs. And for right now, it's 30% off for our 50 days of Christmas deals. So I'll put a link below. Make sure to check that out. And sometimes it can be helpful to gauge how you're pacing with the average American. So if you need a quick checkpoint, check out my episode on how do you compare financially to the average American coming next. And share this with a friend who may need some encouragement. All right, you guys, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love. I recently heard about a couple that paid off $32,000 in debt, and it all started with a game that they made up called consumption. So they ended up using the debt snowball method and working the baby steps. And since they kind of accidentally fell into the Ramsey way, I thought we could unpack more of their story today because it is so interesting. And then later I'll share my own top 5 products that I always have a risk of over-consuming and wasting my money on. So stay tuned. But first, like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a future episode. All right, the rules of their game were this. You have to use up all of what you currently have of a specific item before repurchasing it. So this is candles, expired spices, batteries, skincare, clothes, that are out of style, but they're still in good condition. So it sounds really simple, but good marketing can convince anyone that they need extra stock of some things, right? They have BOGO sales, restock organization videos online, which get all this stuff. You think about the COVID toilet paper crisis, never forget, everyone's panicking and needing more, and they're stocking up. Now, once this couple started really living minimally, they decided to take it one step further and start paying off their debt with that extra margin. And so using the debt snowball method, they paid off $32,000 in debt in just 2 years. So if you're not familiar with the debt snowball method, this is the way here at Ramsey we talk about tackling debt. So this is where you list out all of your debts, smallest amount to largest amount, regardless of the interest rate. You're going to pay minimum payments on everything and attack that smallest debt first. Once the smallest debt is paid off, you're going to take everything that you were throwing at that smallest debt and you roll it over to the second smallest debt. So again, this is extra margin from your budget. Maybe you got an extra job. Any extra money you have goes to that smallest debt. Once it's paid off, you roll it over to the third smallest. And the idea of the snowball idea mathematically is that you no longer now have a minimum payment of the smallest debt and the second smallest debt because they're paid off. So all of that creates more money going to that third smallest debt. So it just keeps going. All right, before we hear the rest of their secrets to financial success, I do want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Christian Healthcare Ministries. When you go against what society thinks is, quote, normal, it might seem weird at first, and that's okay. We want you to be weird if that means you're doing things intentionally, including how you spend your healthcare dollars. And one way to be intentional is with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM isn't health insurance. They're a health cost-sharing ministry that's helped hundreds of thousands of families like yours take care of healthcare costs without sacrificing their freedom. Programs start as low as $98 a month, so find out more and join at chministries.org/budget. That's chministries.org/budget. All right, so good habits build on themselves. And so eventually they actually started working the rest of the baby steps. And in the article, she says, now we have an emergency fund and a brokerage account, high-yield savings accounts, and retirement accounts. So this is amazing because when you don't have debt and you don't have payments, suddenly your income comes in and you have all of it. You get to decide what to do with it. And so with the baby steps, they did the correct order. You start off baby step 1, it's getting $1,000 emergency fund. And with this, you can just put it in a high yield savings account. Baby step 2 is paying off all of your debt using the debt snowball method that we just talked about. Then once all your debt is paid off, everything but your mortgage, you're going to bump up that starter emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses. So that's your fully funded emergency fund. This is not invested. Again, you can just put this in a high yield savings account. And there's something just so powerful about having no payments and a ton of money just saved in case you need something. So that's all over there. And then they mention retirement accounts, which is baby step 4. So that's funding 15% of your income into retirement. And so this could be your 401k, a 403b, your Roth IRA, any type of retirement accounts you're putting 15% of your income into. And then from there, you can save for kids' college, pay off your house early. And baby step 7, the last one, is to build wealth and be extremely generous. And so it is powerful to have a method to the madness of money and to have steps that are guiding you along the way. It's really important. And I think it's important from a behavior standpoint too, knowing okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm making progress with my money. I'm not just spinning in this wheel, not knowing am I doing the right thing? These steps really give you power and control over your money, which is what we want. And stories like this prove that the Ramsey way isn't crazy, right? It's just common sense. This makes sense, you guys, to live on less than you make. Be doing a budget, telling your money what to do, having savings for a rainy day, planning for the future, all of it. But it's just putting it in a good system. But it's a lot easier said than done. So now it's time for me to come clean. And when they were talking about overconsumption and overspending on things that they have to wait till they're empty. Here are 5 things in my life that I stock up on. And I'm like, I could use this underconsumption idea. My first one is shampoo. I usually always have a backup. Paper towels. I love paper towels. I know they're terrible for the environment, all the things, but I love paper towels, and I always have a backstock of them. I just love seeing a lot of paper towels. Makes me feel good in life. Makeup. I mean, I rarely get to the point where I'm like scraping it at the end and not having a backup. And it's so funny because I'll buy something because I'm like, I need it because I'm running out. And then that running out lasts me still like another 3 to 4 weeks before I even have to open the new thing. And so again, I mean, these are ones that are just hard for me. Candles is another one. I think about books, that picture of Cameron Diaz in The Holiday, when she's like on the plane and she's like all these books stacked up. I love books and I do read them eventually, but like I'll get on a roll where like I see like 2 or 3 and I'm like, oh yeah. So I have a backlog of books for sure. Oh, so that's mine. I'm curious what yours are. So comment down below because again, I think we can all overconsume at times and have those backups. We end up spending money sometimes within a month that we really don't need to. Okay, we've covered a lot today, including 2 very specific Ramsey methods, the baby steps and the debt snowball. And if you want more of a step-by-step guide to all of this, make sure to check out FPU. Financial Peace University is our course that helps you when it comes to your overall money landscape and teaches you, encourages you, and motivates you to get control of your money. So I'll put a link down below. But for more creative solutions to getting out of debt, you'll want to check out my episode called The Fastest Way to Pay Off Debt in 2025. I'll be sure to put it here, so click there. Or if you're listening on podcast, I'll put a link down below. All right, you guys, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. So if you know me, you know that I have a pretty hard line around debt. And I think a lot of people understand and they see why. But one of the most common arguments that I hear is that the experiences are worth taking out debt. So the idea of vacation or great meals, whatever it is, it's like, yeah, but it's this experience and these memories and it's worth it. So keep watching to hear what I think about this and be sure to subscribe and share with a friend before we get started. So I saw a recent stat that 45% of parents who go to Disney with kids under 18 take on debt for their vacation. And the average amount of debt that these parents take on was close to $2,000, $1,983 to be exact. So going to Disney, specifically Disney, right? It's an expensive place. I mean, it is. You think about prices of tickets and everything, and there's a spectrum of like, if you stay on property or not. I mean, like there's ways around to cut costs, but just even getting into the park, if you have a family of 3, 4, 5, 6, it's very expensive. And listen, we all have choices to make, okay? And if this has ever been you, it's a choice that's probably coming from a good place. If you're thinking, do I want to go to Disney or not? Do we have the money or not? But it's also a choice that will have consequences if you choose to go into debt. And in my opinion, I think that there is a better way to do this. So I'll share more about that in just a few. But first, I want to debunk 4 common myths around the debt is worth it for the experience arguments, okay? Because again, I think a lot of people justify this. And it's like, well, we need to go into debt because we won't have the money to do something big like Disney. And so again, the justifications really begin. And the first thing that I hear all the time is that Disney parents are the best parents, right? It's this idea of wanting your kids to have a memorable, joyful experience. And that's a really great thing. But just because a parent takes their kid to Disney does not mean that they are a better parent than someone that doesn't. Okay, I think we can all say that out loud, right? And when I say it out loud, you're probably thinking, well, of course, Rachel, we know that. But in the heat of the moment, when you are that parent and that guilt starts, you think, well, yeah. But man, we gotta do this. Like, this is a part of childhood, right? And so this idea, this lie that suddenly you are a better parent because you're giving your child this experience versus maybe saying, we don't have the money, so we're not going to do that. Again, it's a lie. It's a lie to believe that you're a better parent because of it. Number 2, your kids will always be happy at the happiest place on earth. Raise your hand if your child has ever been in a full-blown meltdown and you're like, oh, wait 1 second, child, let me go get my phone so I can like video you doing this and then post it so we can be really relevant, like all the things. No, people don't do that. We don't feel meltdowns, not because you're always embarrassed by them. Sometimes you are, but also because like your anxiety's high. You're trying to figure out what your kid needs. You're not thinking about going and filming it. So the same is true with the Disney parent. And I'm going to believe that. I'm going to take the positive approach to this, that people aren't posting their meltdowns because nobody has time to whip out their phone and record the meltdown, right? So the idea that every picture you see, most pictures you see, it looks like a glorious time, and I bet some of the trip is. We have been to Disney as a family, so I will fully admit, like, yeah, there are times that it is so fun and enjoyable. And then every trip, always, no matter where you are in life, right? Even out to a restaurant, the meltdown happens, or the disrespect, or the talking about whatever it is. It always happens. And it always happens at Disney too. But you may never see it. Number 3, my kid is going to remember every single detail of every day. They won't always remember like, gosh, that specific thing on that specific day and that specific ride and that specific time. What they remember is the overall emotion of the trip. They remember the funny moments as a family. They remember the time that they were scared and they were brave and did the thing. I mean, the idea that they're going to remember every single detail is just not true. It's not. I mean, even as parents, we don't. And so the idea of sharing moments with your family that are memorable in Disney or not is really crucial, because that is what your kids remember. They really do. They remember how they felt in a moment versus the actual thing. All right, before I debunk the 4th lie and share my number 1 tip for traveling the smart way, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Delete Me. I saw a headline recently that really caught my attention. 1/3 of the U.S. population's background info is now public. So for 115 million of us, data breaches mean that our info is just out there for anyone to find. And this is stuff like our names, addresses, phone numbers, and more. And that is why I love Delete Me, because they find and remove your information from hundreds of data broker websites that will buy, sell, and trade your personal information. So take control of your online privacy with Delete Me. An individual Delete Me plans start as low as $9 a month. So sign up today at joindeleteme.com/Rachel for 20% off, or just click the link in the description. All right, the 4th myth is that Disney is the only place where joy exists. Yeah. Let's just all take a moment and say, that is not true. And I think we all know that, but sometimes we have to say these things out loud. Because listen, your kids can have the same level of fun on a staycation. And you may be thinking, that's not true, Rachel. So much of our attitude as parents and the environment in which we live our lives and handle our kids in situations matters so much more than where we are. Because you could create an incredible staycation and they are going to have the best time. Because listen, if you don't have cash for Disney, maybe book a room at the local Holiday Inn with a Groupon and let the kids go crazy with the vending machines and the indoor pool. And trust me, they are going to have a great time. Or think of other experiences that can spark joy from home. Think about having board game night. Think about having movie nights. Think about going out and like doing a scavenger hunt. Like doing things with your kids will bring so much joy. We recently had a litter of puppies. We have 6 puppies at our house currently who are 6 weeks old. And can I tell you, it has been like our kids, they would pick this over anything else. Now, it has been a lot of work. It's a lot. But the amount of joy that comes just from that, from having puppies for 8, 9, 10 weeks at our house, has been like the best thing ever. So again, you may not be able to have a litter of puppies at your house. I get that. But think of creative ways to create memories with your family and have joy and excitement in your life where it doesn't have to be spending tens of thousands of dollars at Disney World. Now, one thing that can steal your joy on a daily basis is debts. And this is true if you are paying it off months and months after a Disney vacation. Because think about it. You are still paying for these experiences after you've already lived them, plus with interest, so you're paying even more. So creating fun and enjoyable experiences for your kids, regardless of where you are, is so important. But if you do want to go and have fun with your kids on a great trip, which again, we are all about, I want you to do that. I'm not mad at Disney. I think it's great, but I want you to do it a smart way. So my number 1 tip for traveling of any kind, including Disney World, is to save up and pay for it. So this may mean that you're going to be at a slower pace when it comes to saving up and paying for something. It may mean that your trip will look different if you choose to pay with all cash versus going into debt where you could spend more than what you have. You're going to have more, boundaries and limitations. But all of this is to set yourself up well, because one of the worst things that can happen is going deeply in debt for something and then coming home and having to pay for it month after month, plus interest on top of it. And again, I feel like in our world today, I talk to so many people where it's like this paycheck to paycheck cycle. And sometimes it is so easy to give into our emotions. It's like, it would just be so nice just to have a trip and to get away. And our kids really want to go. Let's just go. You kind of just like throw everything out the window and you do it. Because in the moment, it just feels like, we should, because we want to be a great parent or whatever the thing is that's causing you to do that kind of vacation. And realizing that when you get back, though, that stressful cycle that maybe you were already in gets even worse. And I think part of being a grown-up and part of being mature when it comes to our money is we have to say no. We have to say no to ourselves. We have to say no to our kids sometimes. So if it is not in the budget, if you don't have the cash for it, that doesn't mean you can never do it. Just be patient. So do not go into debt for a vacation. Okay. I promise the vacations that follow you home in payments are not worth it. Now, when you are looking to save up for a vacation, doing a little bit per month is the way to do it. And that's called a sinking fund. And if you download the Every Dollar app, this is going to help you with your monthly budget. And in it includes sinking funds. Because listen, I am all about experiences. I am all about fun. And I want you to enjoy your life and have fun. I just want you to do it the right way where the fun can continue even when you come home. So make sure to download the Every Dollar app, put a sinking funds line item in there and save up for these trips, because there are great experiences to have out in the world and it's wonderful. But when you go into debt for them, again, it sucks the life out of you. Now, if you want to make progress with your budget really fast, make sure to check out my episode on the right way to do a monthly budget. That is next. And for podcast listeners, make sure to click the link below to get that episode. All right, you guys, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. So as a personal finance expert who's also a mom, I get a lot of questions when it comes to kids and money, which makes sense because I think as parents, we want to raise our kids to be great adults in life. And part of great adulting is understanding how money works. And also, I talk to some people that say, I wish I had known this earlier. And they're passing that on to their kids, saying, if you can get this early, you can avoid so many mistakes that I made as a parent when it comes to money. So the motivation is so great, and I love the conversation. So today I'm going to be sharing my take on whether or not your kids should get paid for household chores. It's a very hot topic these days. Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and also let me know your thoughts in the comments as we go. So typically there's two different opinions on this topic. It's either kids should never get paid for any chores around the house. They are part of the family and they should just learn to help out. And the other side is like, no, pay kids on everything because it teaches them earning money and work ethic. There's so many great learning opportunities. So there's like these two extremes. And I'll be honest, I land right in the middle. And the way my parents always did it growing up is that we were on the commission system, not allowance. So if you work, you get paid. If you don't work, you don't get paid. But there's also a few chores you're going to do because you're part of the family. There's also a set number of chores that you can do to earn money if that's what you want to do. So again, falling in the middle, I think, is really the healthiest balance on both of them because there's such, great learnings on both sides of that argument. Now, I also want to acknowledge very humbly, Winston and I, we're not perfect when it comes to this whole conversation. I think we're kind of inconsistent when it comes to it. We try really hard and we're like, do this and you'll get $1. Like we'll kind of do it as we go. But we have a 9, 7, and 4-year-old. And our 9 and 7-year-old, I feel like, are more inclined to do chores and get paid for them because they've actually used money they've earned to buy things and they love it and it's fun. And our 4-year-old, he's kind of getting there. But I feel like we probably need to button up the system a little bit more. So just give yourself grace for sure. If you feel like, oh my gosh, we're failing at this, I get it. We're I'll give you $1 if you do this. Like we'll randomly, talk about it, and then I don't have $1, and then I'm like, oh God, I'll keep on my notes app, I'll like keep a tally of what you've done. I mean, it can be a hot mess because life is just crazy. It really is. But again, the more consistent and the more it's talked about and played out, the better off you're going to be. Now, in a perfect world, here's how we would typically roll things out. And obviously this is going to be age dependent. So remember that. But any household chore that is kind of beyond the everyday upkeep. So think about like cleaning out the car or washing the car, maybe taking care of animals, maybe going out on the porches and going outside and sweeping off, the sidewalks or the porches, maybe vacuuming or dusting, pulling weeds, helping clean out some closets or get organized in a certain area. Like these things that are kind of a little bit above and beyond, I think are great chores to pay your kids on because they're adding value. That's not just like the basics, right? But then you look at the basics. So this is like, Charles brings his plate to the sink. The girls were trying to get to, scrape it off and put it in the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher, keeping their room clean, picking up after themselves. Like these are things that should just be expected. So again, I see both sides of the coin of have a couple of things that they get paid on because they learn so much when they earn their own money. They give it differently, they save it differently, they spend it differently. But also, you don't want to teach them that every good thing you do, you get paid on, because sometimes you just have to do things because you're part of, society. All right, before I share my thoughts on teaching kids about money as they get older, I want to tell you about something that protects you and your children. That is Delete Me. Because you guys, scammers are everywhere. And I have to admit, I have fallen for a scam or two on my own. And listen, it happens to the best of us because our information's out there, our phone numbers, some of our accounts, emails, addresses, like all of that. So that is why I recommend Delete Me, because Delete Me finds and removes your personal data like your home address, your phone number, and more from hundreds of data broker websites, helping protect you from spammers, scammers, and online thieves, and potentially saving you a lot of time and money. So you guys, make sure to check them out. Go to joindeleteme.com/Rachel for 20% off. That's joindeleteme.com/Rachel. All right, as your kids get older, a couple things to think about. Get them a student checking account at your local bank. With this, they'll get old-fashioned checks. They'll get a debit card. But to have a student checking, your name is still over the account. This is a great way for them to learn and understand that, using their own money out of this account, having to budget for the month. Mom and dad, they gave us a certain amount of money every month when we were 15, and we weren't allowed to ask them for money. So if we wanted to go out with friends or go to the movies or whatever it was, buy clothes, it had to come out of this account. And if we wanted more, then we had to get a job. And trust me, Dave and Sharon Ramsey did not give us, I swear, the amount of money we really needed. They gave us a much smaller because then we had to go and get jobs, which was great because that's the thing with your teens. Having them earn money is so great. Learning responsibility, scheduling, all of that. So think about babysitting, Chick-fil-A, mowing lawns, being a hostess at a local restaurant, working at a clothing boutique, answering phones for a local business, like anything that they have to do to be accountable to someone else, or maybe they're starting their own business, they're mowing lawns or something. But this idea of accountability and earning money outside the household is so good. And so many parents today, like I understand academics and sports, that's what I hear a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, we have no time. But scheduling in things that are good for your kids and your teens, it is so crucial. And finding, even if it's just like, maybe one day a week, or maybe it's twice a month, like whatever it is, having them do something to earn money outside the household is so, so key. Above all, have one main goal and ask yourself this question: what will build character for my kids long term? Because every decision that we make as parents, again, we're trying for our kids to be great adults. That's a Andy Andrews quote, which I love. He's like, we're not just trying to raise good kids. We're trying to raise kids to become good adults. That's our goal, to let them go out into the world and win. And if you push them to pursue something new, it is really good for them. There's something about their confidence that is built when they actually add value. So it's really key. And if you see gifts in them, encourage that. Mom and dad, they were big on us starting our own businesses. We had to do that. So Denise and I had this business called Your Integrity Snacks when I was 15 and she was 17. And we had a little snack shop at my dad's office. So we went to all the kitchens and we had to go every Tuesday and refill and restock everything. We had to keep a P&L sheet with all of our expenses and our profits. So there's something, again, and you don't have to go that extreme. Thank you, Dave and Sharon. But there's something about learning new skills when you're under your parents' guidance and under their household that, again, just builds this character. And so doing things that are out of their comfort zone is good. This is positive reinforcement, and it is powerful. And when they do start earning money, you want to teach them things like giving, gratitude, contentment. You want to teach them to give, to save, to spend. Like what they do with their money tactically and emotionally too is great conversations to have. And one way to do that for your little kids is to grab a copy of my latest kids book. It's just come out and it's called I'm Glad When I Can Share. And this is really the jumping point of generosity for kids when they first can learn to let go of maybe a toy or something, share with other kids. There is something in that they get the joy of realizing, oh my gosh, when I share and I live with an open hand, there is such joy and happiness there than versus if I keep everything to myself. So it is just the most precious kids book. So make sure to check it out. I'll leave a link below. But the discussion on kids and money, it is layered. There's a lot of different topics we can talk about. But if you want to know more about this, make sure to check out my episode on why are millionaires leaving their kids nothing. So click here or click the link in the show notes if you are listening on podcast. All right, you guys, thanks so much for listening. And remember to take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. So since I am part of this world of personal finance, I always love hearing what other experts are teaching in this field. And a lot of us agree on really basic things, which is I appreciate, right? I mean, there are things that, pretty much anyone in this space, it's like car loans, not smart mathematically or financially. Like a lot of people agree on that. Maybe investing strategies are different. Maybe even the way we talk about debt is different. But I always find it interesting, people's nuances when they're teaching about money and their perspective on it. So whenever a book comes out around money, I usually try to read it. And my neighbors kept talking about this one book and I was like, I've got to read it. It's called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. And listen, y'all, it was a really interesting book. And I would say like 85% of it, I was like, all right, I could get there. So today I want to talk to you about some of my takeaways from that book, maybe a few ideas that we kind of differ on. But again, I think it's always important to learn, to grow, to understand people's perspective because it could kind of shift some of yours in a good way. And I'd be curious what you guys think. So be sure to stick around to the end or drop your thoughts in the comments. Okay, like the title suggests, the main concept is to die with zero, which makes me very nervous already. But listen, he argues, the author, that says normally you would just leave an inheritance or money that you've, been saving your whole life. And maybe you have it designated to your kids, or maybe you have it designated to charity or whatever it may be. But would it be more fulfilling in your life if you actually did those things while you were alive? So there's a statistic that I heard recently that said you actually need the most money when you're around like 26 to 38, because that's when people are putting down payments for homes. People are, replacing cars. They're paying off their college debt. Like that age time period is really expensive. So he would argue, instead of leaving an inheritance to your kids, why don't you just give them some money now that's going to help them in their life propel forward, which I thought was really interesting. Now, before I share the main points of the book, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Christian Healthcare Ministries. So when you go against what society thinks is, quote, normal, like avoiding debt, for example, it might seem weird at first, and that is totally okay. We want you to be weird if that means that you're doing things intentionally, including how you spend your healthcare dollars. And one way to be intentional is with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM isn't health insurance. They're a health cost-sharing ministry that's helped hundreds of thousands of families like yours take care of healthcare costs without sacrificing their freedom. So find out more and join at chministries.org/budget. That's chministries.org/budget. Okay, so I want to break down kind of the three main ideas that I took away from the book and the pros and the cons of them. So, number one, he would say we don't need a bunch of wealthy 70-year-olds who are now tired of traveling. And actually, when it comes to their day-to-day life, there's just not that much, that they need to spend money on, but yet they could potentially have millions and millions of dollars. And what their plan is when they die, they're going to pass that on, to their kids or give it away to charity and all of that. So the interesting thing with the kids is, what if you just started giving them more money now and let them use it in their current lives. Like we said earlier, a lot of them in their 20s and 30s, if it's there, they're going to benefit from that money, I would say even more in that age range versus, if they die at 80 and you hand it down to your 60-year-old kids, well, they're fine at that point. Then it's going on to the grandkids. So if that makes sense, I really did. I was like, man, I love that idea, because part of changing your family tree is helping your kids. And again, it's a very fine balance, because you don't want to just throw a bunch of cash at your kids. And again, not everyone has that ability to. I understand that fully. If you're on the baby steps, you're probably thinking, okay, Rachel, that's great for someone else. But if you have that mindset, there is something about intentionally, when you give money or spend money that your kids are able to use for assets or for themselves, it's a really beautiful thing. Now, the con is that your kids still need to build character. There's dignity that they still have to work and they still have to provide for themselves. So it's almost like you don't want to give them so much so they don't have to do anything. But could you give them enough while you're still alive to help them start off on the right foot? It's an interesting concept. All right, number 2 is if you're planning to donate a large sum of your money, do it now. So he would say, you get to see the impact of your generosity and be able to see what is happening in the world from your generosity. And again, instead of waiting to die with possibly millions in the bank, if you're investing in all of that, you don't get to see that. And I'm like, man, there is something powerful. If you want to do something with that money and help people, help them in today's world if you can. That's why I'm always pro giving, right? We always talk about that even on the budget. It's like the top line item. But this is more of a magnified idea. So give even more and don't just wait till you're dead. I'm like, yeah, I like that. Now, the con is obviously the average person, we're not Bill Gates and don't have massive amounts of money to throw at places now. But again, it's more of that concept. Can you live more in the present with your money instead of waiting for decades and decades down the road? I don't know. It's a good question. All right, number 3 is enjoy your money earlier on. So a little disclaimer here, because I never want to say that you should just rack up tons of debt and go do whatever you want with your life. No, because that's going to end up bringing you less happiness and less enjoyment. So again, this book, there's parts of it that I was like, okay, this is for people that, maybe further down the road, financially speaking. But his big point was, again, instead of this hoarding mentality and saving kind of that scarcity mindset, that you're thinking, okay, what if you just spent some of it? And y'all, I am here to tell you, we talk to people on the Ramsey Show who are on baby steps, 4, 5, 6, even 7. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared to spend money. And we ask them some questions. And there's been plenty of calls that I'm like, go on a cruise, go spend some of your money and enjoy it and do it while you're able-bodied and you're able to go and do things and experience things. And there's just something beautiful about doing that with people that you love. And, I think about going to concerts. And if you have the ability to be yeah, I'm going to buy another ticket and bring a friend with me, right? Or traveling or whatever you want to spend money on. Again, I lean more experiences. I think you get some joy out of that than just buying a bunch of purses. But there's something about saying, okay, I don't want to have this scarcity mentality. I want to be able to enjoy some of my money. And we want you to do that. We say live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. And that's part of that second part of the statement. But instead of waiting until you're 80 years old to start enjoying it, enjoy some of it now. So I really like that. Now, the con of that is the baby steps. We never want you to put that on the back burner. I want you to progress quickly and efficiently with your money. And so some people could read this book and be like, oh my gosh, she's telling me just to go and spend everything I have and enjoy my life. So that YOLO mentality, it's somewhat there, but I want you to have a strong financial foundation and the actual margin to be able to do it. But that's what I love about the baby steps is it can get you there, in a reasonable time. So the author, he's kind of a little lukewarm on 401ks and that kind of thing. And I'm the opposite. I do think generational wealth is a beautiful thing. And I would not recommend trying to die with zero. But I loved that it stretched me some. I think it did give me permission to a degree to be okay, yeah, let's go and enjoy it. Let's go and do that. I don't know. There was something about it that was freeing to me. But I would say read it with some, with some warning. I think, again, some people could read it and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go and just cash out everything and just live my best life. We want to be wise. We want to be smart. And I would not want to go and spend or give all the way down to zero before I die, because that is scary. You want money, up until you're dead for sure. And if you had some left over, that's good too, right? So again, there's just this different concept, which I really appreciated and I liked. So I'm glad that I read the book. And I would be curious, what you guys think about it. And, I had Dr. Arthur Brooks on the show, and he did talk about ways that money actually does bring joy and happiness. And the one thing it doesn't is when you just buy a bunch of stuff, that materialism and all of that. So when I hear him say that, and then I read this book, I'm like, man, there is a beautiful thing of giving today, enjoying your money today, maybe helping your kids more than you thought you would today if you can. So again, there's some great stuff, but the reality check too is after years of working the baby steps, that foundation still has to be laid first. Now, if you thought this episode was interesting and you want to check out my episode on the book that changed how I think about money, that one is next. Remember, you guys, to take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. All right, I hate to be the bearer of old news, but in case you've been living under a rock, almost everything has gotten more expensive recently. Yeah, have you noticed? We've all caught a little bit of a break, specifically, with eggs and toilet paper, over the last year or two. But overall, inflation is still sticking around. And one area that this is majorly affecting is the cost of insurance. So everything from car insurance to health insurance to home insurance, the cost of these continue to increase, it seems like, by the day. And it is so frustrating. My sister, she went to go renew their homeowner's insurance. She was like, can you believe this? I mean, it's true. I mean, we're all seeing it. So today I'm going to give you a heads up on what to watch out for and talk through some solutions when it comes to this issue. And stick around because I'll be sharing 2 types of insurance that people tend to skip, but ones that you need. All right, first, I started thinking about this topic when someone called the Ramsey Show and they said they couldn't get their car covered by any insurance companies. And I was hosting the Ramsey Show with Dr. John Deloney that day. And we both were like, what? Really? Are you sure? We were like totally questioning the guy. And he was like, no, really. So then finally we looked it up after we got done with the call. And he was right. Like there's a specific model of a Kia that had a bad track record with safety features or part repairs. And basically, insurance companies refused to get involved because they didn't want to pay for the high risk and everything. And so, it was crazy. So then I knew, that was kind of going on. And then some other insurances were going up. So I was like, we just need to look at this and get the facts. So let's look at some recent stats just to wrap our head around all of this. According to the S&P Global Market Intelligence, insurance companies aim to raise home insurance premiums by more than 11% last year on average. And in addition to that, car insurance premiums are now starting to outpace inflation. So, for example, Farmers Insurance raised its private auto rates to double digits in 43 states last year. And health insurance rates are rising, and an estimated 8.4% of Americans, aka 27.6 million, were going without health coverage in 2022, according to Forbes. So what happens as a result of inadequate coverage when things happen in life? Debt. Debt ends up being the safety net for many people's situations. So whether it's health insurance, car insurance, all of it. And now medical debt is really common. And honestly, it is so sad. It's actually the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt. And you think about that, it's so sad. And we can't fix the health care situation in America through this video. But I think we can all say that it does suck that, in order to take care of ourselves, it costs a lot of money and you have to have adequate insurance to make sure that it's covered, because if that doesn't happen, then you are paying a premium out of pocket and it leaves a lot of people in financial distress, and it's really, really difficult. And so what I want to do, though, is talk through some practical solutions to this problem in a minute. But first, let's look at the why behind rising insurance rates as a whole. So there's a few reasons for this. Number one, insurance execs claim that they're being forced to raise rates because that it's legitimately required because of the lifestyle norms of people today. The cost it takes to take care of things like your car being replaced or things going on in the healthcare industry. Because things are more expensive, they're having to charge more. Number two, an increase in natural disasters over the last couple of years, along with the increase of population, has affected supply and demand. And number 3, the culprit that we can all agree on, inflation. So clearly this is a challenge for so many people, but we're feeling it even in insurance. Now listen, I am not here to invalidate the struggle because it is very real, but I do want to offer some solutions that help because I want you to be able to control what you can control. And sadly, we can't always control what the insurance companies are going to do, but we can control what we do with our money. Now, one of those things you can control is actually one of our sponsors, which is Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM is a faith-based alternative to health insurance, and it makes healthcare more affordable and allows its members to share each other's healthcare costs. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So step 1, choose the healthcare provider that you want. Step 2, submit your eligible bills. And step 3, get reimbursed. CHM members take care of your eligible medical bills. And with no networks and the freedom to choose your healthcare provider, CHM is the best option for Christians who want to take care of their families and help other believers. So to find out more, go to chministries.org/budget. All right, here are 3 things that I want you to do ASAP that are going to pay off big time. Number 1, ditch unnecessary coverage. So insurance is an important part of life, but there is coverages, you guys, you don't need. So things like whole life insurance, you need life insurance, but whole life is so expensive. Accidental death insurance, you don't need that. Mortgage protection insurance. Any insurance that is for kids, okay? So a lot of people try to sell like a whole life policy for your child or things like that, Gerber insurance, all of this stuff. You don't need that stuff. So when you take those things off the table, if you have them, that's going to save you some money. Number 2, be diligent in asking questions. So whether it's phone calls to your doctor's office or a quick meeting with your HR rep at work, asking questions specifically around the health insurance stuff can be really finicky, but really important because sometimes these insurance companies just bank on you not asking questions. They send you the bill and you just keep on moving. But we've heard so many stories of people that keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and they get their bill lowered because whether they found something in the fine print or there's errors or there's things going on. Again, ask questions, dig in, and that could save you some money. And number 3, price out what's best for your family. Time is money, people. And there are pros and cons to different coverage packages with different insurance companies. So don't forget that you hold the power when you decide your options and you get to say, hey, which option do I want? So if you and your spouse maybe have different benefits packages between both of your jobs, sit down and say, hey, is it better for you to take the family and the kids on yours and I'll go as an individual? Or is it better for us to come together just to see, hey, what's going to save us? You know, even if it's $200 a month, that's $2,400 in a year. So it's worth the trouble to do the math and figure that out. And spoiler alert, if you got extra money, that's margin that you have to use for your life or pay off debt or save, and that's great. Now, before I share the 2 types of insurances that most people skip most often, let's circle back to our chat about debt a little bit earlier. Because if you're someone that feels the weight of the past when it comes to specifically medical debt or an emergency expense that you weren't prepared for, here's what I recommend doing. Number 1, get an emergency fund ASAP. So this is a $1,000 emergency fund. And then number 2, I want you to start paying off your debt. Now, again, if medical debt is one of those in there, do what we talked about earlier and ask some questions. See, hey, are there places here that the bills can be lowered at any portion? And even if they go into collections, which some of them do, sometimes you can negotiate with the collection company. Get everything in writing if you can do that. But again, this is something that it's so burdensome on people because it carries such a sad story usually with it. But here's the thing, if it's a mountain, you can take it a little bit at a time. And, you know, just as I see people with student loan debt in the 6 figures, but they pay it off, it takes a while, but they focus on it, they put extra money towards it, and they actually start to see it lower and lower and lower. That can happen with any type of debt, you guys. So again, having a plan puts you in control, which again, I think is so key, and it's just one step at a time. All right, you guys, the 2 insurances that you want to make sure that are in place. Number 1, if you are a renter, please get renter's insurance. It is very inexpensive. I mean, I've seen them as low as like $12, $20 a month. Okay, they're very inexpensive, but get it, because if something happens, if there's a fire, you know, a natural disaster, whatever, and everything is gone, that's all your personal belongings, like making sure that all that's covered, and it's really inexpensive. It may not happen, but again, it's something to protect yourself. And then number 2, identity theft insurance. So this is a big one too in our world that is so digital, that our data is out there. There is so much going on, especially even that we pay online so much with stuff. Like, everything is out there, making sure that your identity is protected. And Zander Insurance is a great place to do this. And just to have somebody on your team that if it happens or when it happens, because I feel like identity theft is so common now, they take care of that for you, which is great. Now, you want to make sure that you're protected with all the insurances that you need. So I recommend using Ramsey's Insurance Checkup. I will leave a link below to make sure that you check that out and that you're covered in all the areas of life that you need to be covered. And for more clarity on what you should and shouldn't be wasting your money on, make sure to check out my episode with Minimal Mom on things that we will not spend money on in 2024. All right, you guys, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. So one of my favorite things that I get to do is hanging out with you guys. I get to interact with you. So whether you're calling the Ramsey Show or I'm reading your comments here on this show or maybe on social media, I love learning all your money wins and your challenges. But after a while, there's kind of a pattern that emerges, right? I always get questions, especially on social media. And if I do one of those, like, ask me anything, I get kind of the same questions. So we're going to go over the 5 top questions that I always get, especially when it comes to Instagram. So some of them are personal finance related, some others are not. So we're going to just go through each of them and hopefully maybe it's questions that you have had that we will answer. All right, the first question has to do with retirement investing. I know, super fun stuff, but some of you love it. You love talking about investing. But lots of people want to know my thoughts when it comes to like Roth or traditional. And typically, here's what I always say, match beats Roth beats traditional. So what I would say is that you always want to go up to the match if your employer offers one, like a 401k, and then go over to a Roth IRA, fund some money. And if you still have money left to go, you can go back to your 401k. Now, some people on social will debate me because when it comes to your taxes and your tax bracket, your income, all of that, some would say, well, shouldn't you just do a traditional IRA? You'll come out better ahead. But here's the deal. When it comes to your income overall, over the scope of your life, the goal is that your income continues to go up, right? And so you're going to be at a different tax bracket when you retire. And a Roth IRA, again, you guys, because of the word Roth, means the growth is tax-free. And I think that's going to benefit majority of people over time because it's just great. Now, another retirement question I get asked is, practically and specifically speaking, how do I open up something like a Roth IRA? So when you're looking at these 2 retirement accounts, a 401k or a 403b, you'll do through your employer. Your HR department should have all of that information so you can open up a fund that way. And then a Roth IRA, what you can do is sit down with an investment professional, do it that way. I mean, even websites like Vanguard, you can actually open up your own. But here's what I would say with both of these, I would still sit down with an investment professional because you can open up the account. You can actually put money in the account, but then you have to take that money that's in the account and actually invest it then. And that's where the confusion can sometimes occur because you want to diversify. You want to choose mutual funds, growth and income, aggressive growth. Like there's different levels of which you want to put your money to diversify within these accounts. And having an investment professional on your side is really, really worth it, you guys. So make sure to sit down with somebody and go through all of that. It sounds a little complicated, but it's easier than it sounds. All right, the second question. So when I get investing, and then my second question, it's a fun one, and it's not related to finances, but people always want to know where I bought X, Y, and Z. Usually when it comes to my outfit, they're like, oh, your jewelry or your shirt, your jeans. Oh my gosh, where did you buy it? Where did you buy it? So after a while, I was like, well, I'll just start linking. I'll start actually showing you the exact website of which I bought it because most of the time, all my stuff is from Amazon and Target and Old Navy. Old Navy, Amazon, Target. Oh my gosh, it's like literally, this is Rachel right here. And so again, I sometimes will throw in a nice blazer from like J. Crew or something, but I love buying more inexpensive clothes because I like to keep up with the trends. I think they're fun. And when they go out, I don't feel as bad like getting rid of clothes or donating clothes because I'll probably cycle through them. So I'm always more than happy to be able to tell you exactly where I bought something because if you find something cute and it's a good deal, spread the love, right? Spread the love. Now, I will also save up and buy some investment pieces. I will buy like a nice purse, for instance. Some of my jewelry is nice. Like this is Amazon, but this is David Yurman, right? So like we got a mix going on. But again, more sentimental pieces, I will invest some money in and have some nice ones. But again, I love clothes. I love shopping. And apparently a lot of people do too. So I'm your girl. I'm here to help you. All right, the third question I get asked most often is another very practical money question. So I'll go ahead and say up front that my answer for this one has always been the same and it will never change. But some people have a hard time accepting it. And people want to know, if I have savings, should I really throw it all at my debt to pay off my debt? Or should I pay my debt off over a longer period of time but still have some savings as a cushion? So I will always teach the baby steps because I've seen it work time and time again. And that is have a $1,000 emergency fund, but then everything else throw at your debt, which I know can be really scary, especially if you have like 10 grand or 20 grand saved up. You're like, I'm going to empty all of that. But here's the deal. It's only for a period of time. It's not that you're never going to have that money back again. And the faster you can pay off debt, not only are you getting rid of money that you're probably paying high interest on, mathematically speaking, you're actually probably getting ahead by putting some of that money towards that debt. But once you have no payments, you're able to booster that fund back up to a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses, which is baby step 3. So it's a question I get a lot. Oh, should I really take my savings and throw it at the debt? Yes, and amen. Get it out as quickly as possible. And it is an amazing thing that happens when you don't have debt, mathematically speaking and emotionally. All right, the fourth question I get asked most often on social media is what I'm currently reading. Yes, I love books. I will talk about books a lot. And a lot of you love books too. And I used to do, or I still do, these reels, and I stopped for a few months. Life kind of got crazy and I don't know, I just didn't do them. And people were like, where are your book reels? We want your book reels. What are you reading? So I'm reading a book by David Thomas and it's called Wild Things. And I realized, you guys, I have 2 older girls, and when my girls were in my life and I'm a big reader, I read so many girl books. And I was like, girls, and how their brains are developing. And I just loved it. It was so interesting. Then the third kid comes along and I'm like, I haven't done anything. So I was like, I need to read a book on boys because he's 4.5. He's about to turn 5. And it is so good, you guys, because it breaks it down by ages. And he's hitting this mid-stage at 5. At 5, it's a new phase. So 5 to 8, I think is what it is. But it's called Wild Things by David Thomas. And it's been so good. So good. So check that one out. I also just finished The Women by Kristen Hanna. It's a really great book. It's about nurses that were during the Vietnam War. And actually Kelly, one of the producers of the show, told me, she's like, you got to read it. But I love Kristen Hanna. It was a really good one. And then I got 2 books in the mail this weekend, which I'm really excited to dive in. One is called The Teacher, and it's by the same author that did The Housemaid. Great book too. That one, and then another murder book, because I love murder books. So I'll be diving into those soon. But I do love books. Love them. And I'd love to hear what you're reading too. I usually ask this on social media, but here on podcast and YouTube, drop your comments. I want to know what you're reading. And the 5th question is probably my favorite because it's one of the financial habits that I could never live without. And that is how to budget. Rachel, how do I budget? Can I budget on an irregular income? What do I do with this? What do I do with that? And listen, budgeting is one of those things that you put into your life and you do consistently, and it just brings you peace. It does. It shows you your guardrails, gets you in control of your money. And simply, we always teach a zero-based budget, which is your income for the month minus all of your expenses, including giving and saving, should equal 0. Every dollar of your income has a purpose and you know where it's going. And the budget can fluctuate throughout the month, okay? Stuff will happen. You may have to change some categories. It is a living and breathing part of your life, so it's okay to change it. But just being aware, hey, this is how we live below our means. This is how we hit the money goals we want to hit. And it just gives you a plan. And we use every dollar in our house. So I will always say that, give every dollar a shout out, because it is an amazing tool to be able to use on your phone. And if you're married, your spouse can have the same login. So you guys are looking at the same stuff. It is so helpful. All right, speaking of budgeting, if you haven't already, check out my episode on the 4 most popular budgeting methods and which one gets my stamp of approval. All right, you guys, that's it. Love your questions. Love getting to chat with you whenever I can. But remember, for you to always take control of your money and create a life you love. Well, hey, you guys. So today we're going to go back in time. We're going to have a little story time with Rachel because I thought it would be really interesting to talk through kind of the history, the backstory of the Ramsey baby steps. We talk about the baby steps so much on this show because it really is the plan that we use, the filter we use when it comes to talking about your money on a really tactical level. Now, if you've not heard of the Ramsey baby steps. There's 7 steps that are the basics of personal finance that you do in order, everything from paying off debt to saving, investing, kids' college, paying your house off, all of it. So if you've ever wondered like where they came from, again, we're going to kind of just give you a little deep dive into it because I think it does give you some perspective. And it's interesting too that these steps have stayed the same pretty much since the beginning. So this all started back in 1988 when Dave and Sharon Ramsey filed for bankruptcy. Dun, dun, dun. So long story short, Dad was in real estate, was doing flips. So he would, take money from the bank, do a flip, make more on it, pay off the loan, have money, go get another loan, do the same thing. But he was doing that like 20, 30 properties at a time. And then what can happen, doesn't happen often, but it did. One bank can look down and say, wow, this guy has a lot of debt out and he's young, feels like a lot of risk. We just want all of our money back. So they do a thing called, they call your notes. And that's what happened. So it took about 90 days and it was to pay back like, I don't know, millions, $1 point something million in debt. That was all tied up in real estate. So he had to go and try to sell real estate. When you try to sell real estate fast, because you're in a pinch, like old Davey was, then you sell it usually for cheaper and you got to get it through quick. And so there wasn't enough money coming in after it was selling that to pay the bank off. So basically what had to happen was a lot of these properties got foreclosed on and he had to file for bankruptcy. So when that happened, at the very bottom of everything, I was a baby at the time. My sister was a toddler. It was kind of this like moment of realizing, wow, I thought I knew what I was doing when it comes to money. I thought I was being smart. And obviously my plan didn't work. So what really is this thing with money? Like, how do I really get myself in a position that I can be successful, but do it the right way? And then at the same time, people were coming to him being like, hey, we're in trouble and we may have to file for bankruptcy. Can you walk us through it? What did that look like? How are you doing now? And then he slowly but surely, really organically started coaching people when it came to the subject of money and people that were struggling. And so that compounded and compounded. And then he wrote a book and then got a radio show on this broke radio station here in Nashville. And then it just kind of kept building and realizing there was such a need out there for people that were struggling with this subject in life, which is money. But while he was coaching people, he realized that some of it, wasn't clicking because people, were paying off all of their debts, at the same time, trying to like attack all of them. And then something would happen and their car would break down or their roof would leak. And then suddenly they got a big bill and they were back in debt. And so it was kind of this light bulb moment that went off where he was like, okay, I need to like rethink some of this and how this really works. And if you don't have money saved and something happens, because things will happen, you go right back to the bottom again, back into debt. So that is when these steps started to form. And that's when baby step 1 was born. And that is to save $1,000 emergency fund. And establishing that safety net is really, really key. And that $1,000, you guys, has not changed since then. And with inflation, cost of living, everything, it hasn't changed because in one sense, it's not so much about the dollar amount. It really is about the behavior that is changing. And so he wanted this step to be one that you could do really quickly. I mean, if you sell stuff, you work extra, you do what you can, you cut things out. I mean, to get $1,000, you want to get a quick win because so much about money is behavior change. And if you don't have a quick win, it's easier, more than ever to fall off the train. So to get that quick win, it was really key. And then over time, it's like, okay, for most things, it's not $1,000, most emergencies, things that don't have to be put off. Now, if something big happens, you obviously pause everything and work on that emergency. But that quick win was really the basis for the $1,000. And that's why that amount hasn't changed. So the $1,000 emergency fund was there. And then that's when you start paying off debt and realizing again that this was all behaviorally based. So paying off the smallest debt first was key. And so if you hear about the debt snowball, it is not about the highest interest rate. It's not about math. It's really about paying off that smallest debt first because that quick win was what was really, really important. So if you're on that step, we tell you to list out all of your debts, smallest to largest, regardless of the interest rate, pay minimum payments on everything, stay current, but pay off that smallest bill first. And studies have been done like from Harvard and all these places between the debt snowball, which is that way, versus the debt avalanche, which is paying off the highest interest rate first. And studies are showing more and more that you pay off faster all of your debt using the debt snowball method because there is something about the momentum that occurs in the human spirit that is so, so important. So that's what occurred in baby step 2. Now, one subscription that's much more affordable and so worth it is Delete Me. This is one of my favorite services, you guys, because Delete Me goes in and removes your online information from data broker websites. Because you don't realize it, but there's companies out there that will collect your data and then they sell your data. They make money off of your information. And then you get spammers and scammers and like all the things, and it's exhausting and annoying. So Delete Me does what they say. They delete you from the internet, and we love that. So you can get 20% off an annual plan at joindeleteme.com/Rachel or click the link in the description. And then once all your debt's paid off, then you have all this free income to be able to say, hey, I can take this income and I can save up, which is baby step 3 to 6 months of expenses. And this is a really important part of the process because having cash on hand for big expenses and even big things that happen in life, from health to losing a job, it's really powerful to say, gosh, I have money in the bank that can keep my family afloat. And the stress when something big happens just isn't there. It's more of an inconvenience than a stress point. So that baby step 3 was big. So then once that fully funded emergency fund is there, then you move on to baby step 3B. And this one actually came a little later in the history of the baby steps. So we kind of added this as an asterisk because people were like, okay, great. I don't have debt. I have an emergency fund, but I need to buy a house. So when do I do that in this process? And you don't want to buy a house when you're deeply in debt. You don't want to buy a house when you don't have an emergency fund. So we call this baby step 3B, where you save up a down payment on a home. So that's kind of the asterisk there. And then once you do that, then you move on to baby step 4. So you're going to invest 15% of your income into retirement. So this is 401ks, Roth IRAs, 403bs. And we say to pause investing while you're doing the first 3 baby steps, because again, it's this focused intensity that we found you get progress. You make progress so much faster when you do that. And when you get to baby step 4, you can invest 15% of your income, where a lot of people that are investing in retirement are investing like 4 to 5% of their income. So you really get to bulk up and you'll catch up for sure and actually have the income to do it, and it's sustainable. And then once you're doing that, you're going to do baby step 5 at the same time. So after you fund your retirement, then kids' college is next. So if you have kids, saving up in a 529 or an ESA and looking into options for your kids' college to prep for them to go to school if you can. And then anything extra is baby step 6, where you pay off the house early. And we're finding people are paying off their homes from like 9 to 11 years on average, which is pretty awesome. So there's something powerful about seeing people do the baby steps because it's been around for so long that we're seeing people on the baby steps 6 and 7, parts of this plan, which is great because it does take a while, right? I mean, some of this, it's going to take years for some of these steps to happen. But that's the great thing is we're seeing people do it in real time and it's happening, and it's just a really amazing thing. So paying off your house, it's an option, which is crazy. And we're seeing people do it. And then once you do that, no house payment, nothing, then you're on to baby step 7, and that's to build wealth and be generous. And so you continue to invest your income and continue to up your giving, because giving should be a part of your plan, regardless of what baby step you're on. But especially on baby step 7, you're able to give so much of your income away, so much of what you're making because you don't have any other payments. And that's when you really, really get to make a big dent into that part, which is just a beautiful thing. So again, the baby steps, it is the plan, you guys, that I think has been so effective because it's a plan. And I think we've learned this a lot in the way you build habits and psychology and sociology. Like you pair all these parts of life together and see how we interact towards parts of our lives. And when you give people a step and a clear plan, a clear path, they're much more effective. And they're actually probably going to do it more than just principles and ideas. And so that's one of the powerful things about the baby steps is as you see the finish line, which is an amazing thing. So another great part of this entire puzzle, if you will, when it comes to the baby steps and Ramsey Solutions, is one thing that I love is that it came out of failure. Like it came out of big money mistakes that were made to the point of bankruptcy. And so what I also think is that it gives hope, because when you are so honest about where you are and yet you're changing for the better and you're actually have a plan that gives you hope, that is something to stick to. And so not only did Dave do that, hopefully I show you along the way the humanity of which I live and the imperfections that happen. But I would also encourage you that if you have been a listener for a while or you have been watching this stuff and you're applied this, share your mistakes with people. I think it really resonates with people when in the struggle and in the hurt, the times that it's like, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. That's where people relate. And so if that's part of your story, dive into that, because again, I think that's where a lot of redemption can happen for other people, because people change people. And so you could be part of that change. So that's one reason, again, at Ramsey, we're so passionate about helping people, is because money does create a lot of pain. It does create a lot of shame. But when you can give someone hope and a plan, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I just love that at the end of the day, it's a plan that gives people freedom and autonomy over their life and their money. It's really an incredible thing. So no matter where you are on the baby steps, continue to push forward towards your financial journey, one step at a time, because life is this, okay? There are going to be ups and downs for sure. And we've all experienced that, but keep moving forward. You have got this. Now, if you want to hear even more about the wealth building process, I have a great video with Dave about using the baby steps to become a millionaire. So check that out. All right, you guys, as always, make sure to take control of your money and create a life you love. So the term Nepo baby has kind of become a buzzword. And if you're not familiar with that, it basically comes from the word nepotism. And that refers to people who end up working in the same industry as their successful parents. So spoiler alert, I'm kind of a Nepo baby. Talking about money, Dave being my dad, it's true. But also at Ramsey, we talk about changing your family tree and how do you set up the next generation to win. So we're going to talk all about it. And we have some A-list celebrities that have thoughts on this too. So make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so here's the thing. When you are looking at personal finance, you can't ignore that some people have more advantage than others. Okay, this is true. So whether it's generational wealth, whether your parents have helped you pay for a car, pay for college, even having just the knowledge of how to handle money, whatever the factors are, there are people that start off at a different place. Now, is that always a negative thing? Because the word nepotism, or the idea of someone starting off better, usually comes with a negative context. And so there is a degree where that can be true, because I think that's where levels of entitlement and competence, like things that we are not good in life, can be bred out of those things. And we don't want that. But we do want factors of your story to say, hey, if you have been winning financially, then yeah, it's only natural that you want to be able to help your kids, but you want to do it in a really healthy way. And so whether, you are a Nepo baby or not, or you're going to have Nepo babies or not, all parents want their kids to grow up with dignity and resilience. And so I found it so relatable in a sense when I saw a couple of these videos from celebrities where they started talking about this idea in interviews, and it was so funny. So today I'm going to rewatch both of these 2 clips that I saw and kind of give you my thoughts on them. And again, I want to hear what you think as well. All right, so the first one is a clip from good old Ben Affleck. So here's the clip.
This clip that went viral of you with your son looking at these sneakers, which were an absurdly high price, and you had the best line, which I plan to use, which is, I'm rich, you're not.
He was like, yeah, because he wanted these shoes. He like, so see these sneakers. I was like, those sneakers are $6,000. What are you talking about? We're gonna pay what are you gonna do? Mow lawns? Like, you got $6,000? He's like, we have the money. I was like, I have the money. You're broke. As far as I know, you haven't lend me $5,000. Right. You got nothing. So it's like, listen, you love your kids. You want to give them everything and do everything for them. But I think you definitely do them a disservice by not connecting. You want something meaningful that you want.
Yeah.
You have to work for that.
Do your kids work?
Yeah, my oldest 2 have jobs. In fact, one just got a job, and one the kind of classic, teenager working at a shop job. I won't say what it is. And my older one who's in college is working and trying to get an internship for the summer and stuff. And yeah, my son who's 13, he's reckoning with that reality right now as he's looking at no shoes in his closet, thinking about, well, he got shoes, just no crazy expensive fancy shoes. I'm like, well, if you want that, you can work 1,000 hours.
I mean, seriously.
You know what I mean? Like a minimum wage.
So good. I think that's so funny because honestly, I'm like, and it's the third kid. It's the third kid asking for that. And I will never forget, Mom and Dad, they got a new car. This is when I was in high school or something. And my brother, third kid, he was early middle school, maybe late elementary school. And he was in the back seat and he was like, man, Dad, we have a nice car. We're doing pretty well. And I will never forget, Dad had the same reaction as Ben Affleck. Dad turned around. He was like, I have a nice car and I'm doing pretty well. You guys, pointed to all of us in the back seats. He's like, you guys got nothing. And so you just appreciate that. A little old-fashioned parenting, because I do think there's the stereotype that, if your parents are successful, then automatically you're ruined as kids. And I don't believe that. I think it can be harder. I think it can have its different challenges for sure. But also, I think there's a beauty in what that looks like in changing the next generation. But you don't want to forget those facets of connecting work and money, which is very, very important. So I love it. All right. The next clip is an interview that I wish I was sitting in on. But first, I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. So you guys, health insurance costs are only moving one way, and that way isn't down. And the wait times are getting longer, and it's harder than ever to get anything approved. So if you feel like the system is working against you, try Christian Healthcare Ministries, a biblically based alternative to health insurance. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry that's helped hundreds of thousands of families take care of healthcare costs, stay true to their values, and avoid getting tied down with miles of red tape. Because you guys, there is a better way. And CHM programs start as low as $98 a month. So find out more and join at chministries.org/budget. That's chministries.org/budget. All right, video number 2 is with Gwyneth Paltrow, and she is on Hailey Bieber's podcast. And this was a really interesting conversation.
I was actually having a discussion with someone yesterday about the whole idea of nepotism. And I think this is really interesting to ask you because obviously you have this insane career. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, I think it's fair, right? Because as the child of somebody, you get access that other people don't have, right? So the playing field is not level in that way. However, I really do feel that once your foot is in the door, which you unfairly got in, then you have to work almost twice as hard and be twice as good because people are ready to pull you down and say you don't belong there and you're only there because of your dad or your mom or whatever the case may be. And it shouldn't limit you, because what I definitely believe is that nobody in the world, especially anybody that doesn't know you, should have a negative impact on your path or the decisions that you make.
I agree. Oh, I'm I need to hear this today.
I thought that was a really level-headed take from her, because I do think there's a level of awareness, being self-aware of hey, this situation, it is different than the rest of the world out there, my specific situation, but also I have to be able to deliver, right? And I think the same thing when it comes to money and our kids of if you are getting out of debt, you have your emergency fund, you're funding retirement, and this idea of leaving a legacy, for your children, inheritance to your children's children, as scripture talks about, there is something to be said of they need to be aware of what has been handed down to them. Is that is a responsibility, and that is different than how a lot of people are. And that awareness is so, so important. But also you have to be able to handle it well. You have to have the tools and the talent to be able to handle that responsibility. So whether it is a job or money, whatever it looks like, I think both of those factors are so key. So I always think it's interesting. So as parents out there, I want to encourage you again to be able that when you're raising your kids, again, whether they're getting an opportunity in a business or they're getting an opportunity financially, that is different in the world, that there's gratitude and awareness around that. But then also having the confidence to say, yeah, but I'm going to have to deliver, because if not, the real world will come back at them. And so there's something to say about being successful in that is really important. So whether it's handling the responsibility of a job or money, that is really key for them to see. Now, if you want the real scoop on wealth building and parenting, then check out What Everyone Gets Wrong About Generational Wealth. You can click here for that, or if you're listening on podcasts, click the link below. All right, you guys, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love.